There it is.
Okay, success and no bubbles. All right.
Excellent.
Episode 4. Let's do this.
Let's go. All right. So, this is
Today. The week of the
today.
deer.
It is. It's the first day of the week of the deer, which is funny. We've been talking about before the podcast started. We've been talking about you know uh, thinking ahead for the future and planning and just the year long, 5 year long, 10 year long plan.
Right.
And I mean, what a day to do that on the seed, the beginning of the week, to help plan out what's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
So
Tell us why. Tell us why, Chris. Why is the
well,
deer conspicuous with planning ahead?
I mean, it's actually really poignant in the idea that the it's often described as the deer, but it's also an image of a hand. If you look at the symbol, taking hold of something,
Hmm.
right? So it's the understanding of grasping things,
Oh, I see.
understanding that there's a finite, there's a completion that happens when you close the circle, right? Uh, just to throw it in there, the actual definition here.
Yeah.
It's often understood as the ability to take things, a conclusion, knowledge, the power of wholeness, the realization of a finite physical existence, right? Because this is
Hmm.
the extent of your ability to do things, is the ends
Hmm.
of your fingers, right? The ends of your
Hmm.
hand. And so, like, in detail, they describe it as being a clue, they describe the meaning as being in meditation that I am slightly hidden by a plan, a threshold into other dimensions. In my end is my beginning, right? The initiation site looks towards the future. So,
Hmm.
which is actually kind of mind blowing for me right now because, like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm in a production of the show Big Fish,
Hmm.
and a big part of his message is that he's not afraid to do anything. He's not afraid of death because he's already seen how he goes. And
Hmm.
so any danger that he faces is just
Hmm.
another part of the step to the end of his journey.
Right.
So,
Well.
yeah, yeah. There's many points in the time in the show where he says, "This isn't how I go," you
Hmm.
know. And so all of a sudden, that realization dissolves all of his fears, and he's able to continue on a clearer path.
I wonder if
Um,
there's a deeper kind of, because there's so many things that kind of like if you peel back the layers, reasons why we don't do things, but if you just peel it back, it's because there's a fear of some sort of death. Whether,
mhm.
I mean, at its core, that's, and we kind of mentioned this before we got started too, is that at its core, pretty much anything that you fear is a fear of some death or death itself. And so, like, if you're afraid to, I mean, from, going skydiving, not that you need to want to do that, but, like, obviously that's a very visceral, literal, like, fear of death, fear of falling, fear of heights. But, like, why a fear of public speaking is a number one fear of people generally. At least I've heard that said before.
Mhm.
And it makes sense because if you mess up in front of your peers or in front of the tribe, uh, you could get ostracized and ultimately end up dead because of it. So that's where it feels like death to, or the fear of that is what becomes present of mind. But you're not. If you've got to give a speech, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm going to die. Your
Right.
fear is at layers in front. It's like layers of front of like, I'm going to be embarrassed, or oh, I don't speak well in front of others, or whatever your thing is. It's a mask. If you pull it back, it's a fear of being ultimately pushed out or not welcome, and or not, don't belong. You don't belong here on this plane living with us.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like worse than death. That could be worse than death. Is
Yeah.
like just being cast out. And so anyway,
And funny you say that because for a long time I did have a fear of speaking in front of people.
right? Yeah.
I was terrified. Just,
And look, you're an actor.
right.
Was this while you were endeavoring to be an actor, or
No, this was in school, man. Like
right?
I remember having a presentation in sixth grade, seventh grade, sixth grade, health or something like
Yeah.
that, and needing to present about the nervous system or something. And
Hmm.
I was so nervous myself. Like, I was shaking. I just kept arbitrarily pointing to my neck, just, which
What?
really
Yeah.
didn't make any sense in context of what I was talking about, even though it was relating to the nervous system.
I mean, yeah, kind of. I don't think ironically is the right word, but like in some sort of that is funny that you're talking about the nervous system and you're kind of like having a nervous breakdown. Yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and oddly enough, it's like a few months later, or maybe it was the next grade, I ended up having an interview in front of my class of people that I've known quite well, gotten to know really well because we were all in the same classes. So we were traveling all over the pod together. It's what we called our sections of our school was pods. And for this interview, we had to pick a celebrity who had passed away and then research them and give a speech about our lives and answer questions in a talk back sort of situation. And so, like, not only was I comfortable with the people that I was in front of, but I also didn't have to be me. And I was so calm. Like, I could
Hmm.
just answer things like it was no big deal, you know, and it was a complete night and day experience by comparison. Fast forward to years later, I ended up doing a job. This is before acting. I ended up doing a job going door to door selling books. I think I may have mentioned this to you before, or maybe not. But I was selling books door to door that were educational books. It was basically the summation of all your high school teachings into these encyclopedia like books. But this was at like the cusp of the internet blowing up so big that there's no
Hmm.
stopping it. We were already in the depths of social media and Facebook, and we'd already had MySpace, and so like at this point, there's so much information on the internet already, and like YouTube and all this was already established. It's like, what do you really need these for? Like,
Yeah, that's funny. Like as if books are going to go away too. Like I think
right.
that is funny because but I get you. Like kind of that is the mode of the times. Like well, everything's going on the internet or everything is on the internet. We're piling it on there, but we're still reading books today.
Right.
Uh, yeah, I want to make a book. I was going to tell you about it last week. I have
That's
this
awesome.
idea to basically have it's kind of be a children's book, but it's for adults too. So it's going
Okay.
to be like a children's book that's entertaining or like it's ultimately to get you to deepen your mind. So it's going to be that it's going to be narrated, or the main character is going to be the number zero, and he's
Wow.
going to basically introduce you to his some of his best friends, which are the numbers 1 through 10, and uh, frame it in a lens of like he's introducing you to, I don't know, these not like eligible bachelors or whatever, but like introducing you to them in a way that where you've never thought about them this before. Like you're, as young as you might be, you might know how to count to 10, but here now introduce you to these numbers as if they're characters in a story. One is unity, is the hero, is the one that represents the many, and then kind of go into all the references. But they think a lot of themselves, like they're kind of like, they're hot shit or whatever. Um, and then you kind of wrap up talking about one, and then either use poems, references, or like allusions to characters that are known as the one, to the extent that that makes sense too, because like I don't want to like attach it to like to pop culture, or
Hmm.
like one ring to rule them all is like a version of one that
Hmm.
is like kind of evil, and then there's also like the one, like Neo, or the chosen
Right.
one, like Anakin Skywalker before he falls. But like all of that, right? Like kind of like quick nods to like popular culture. So it's, again, probably more for the adult in that situation.
Hmm.
And I don't know if they would be like just little like addendums on the page or in the back as a reference or whatever. But basically, that's it. So it's a little profile on number one, and then you get a profile on number two, and two being duality and black and white, or all of the different opposites. But like what that does, it
Hmm.
makes a line. A to B is two. You know, and then how you can divide that. But they're a little bipolar. You never know what to expect from them. So like they have a personality. So it gets you to think about, oh, you can count to 10, um, but in counting to 10, you can fully understand the universe. I think that's the working title. Is like if you can count to 10, you can understand the universe, or you can know the universe, and it's going to be zero who's trying to kind of like help you see that things can be that simple. And you can use these numbers because once you get to 10, you're basically starting back at you have a zero in there again.
Hmm.
And it's so it's kind of like just like when we talk about the Mayan week, right? It comes back full circle
Hmm.
um, every day 13, and that's when you're kind of dealing with the fruit of whatever was accomplished in that week, or what was the main theme of that week.
Hmm.
So and then I think and then it tickles me too. I want to like throw in some bonuses, right? So like you would talk about 11, you would talk about 12, just to kind of like lean into, well, the numbers keep going, and you can keep getting deeper meaning out of them if you're willing to look in and explore. And then maybe it would end, and I didn't need to flesh all this out, but then maybe it would end and be like, well, let's stop there because 13, it's whatever, all the because 13 is unlucky, and without going into the reasons why, but just like
Mm.
kind of like a cliffhanger for like, yeah, we would say more, we could keep going. But also zero being the protagonist, or like the narrator, because are they a number? They're literally everything and nothing,
Hmm.
and like they're gonna even be self-referential in that way. Like I am zero, some people call me nothing, but like that's also everything. Like what is nothing? Like
Right.
nothing. Point to nothing, and you're wrong. So.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But in coming up with that concept, I'm like get really excited about the concept, and then I'm like, does the world need more books? And like that's like a little voice in the back of my head, kind of going back to everything being on the internet now. But it's like, but I think that's a symptom of something greater that's kind of troubling, is
Hmm.
that in a world full of content, it's like. And I think I was listening to a TED talk where some lady was talking about how, you need to do your art. The world's on fire, but doesn't mean you shouldn't be making your art. And she basically said that a bunch of times for like 20 minutes in different ways. But but yeah, ultimately it's like, yeah, write your book. Um, and make it, because you don't know how it might impact other people to see the world through your eyes, or to see
Mm-hmm.
from a different perspective.
Yep.
And a book is tangible. It's real. I don't like that it's made of paper, but we all have to make sacrifices just to stay alive in this physical world.
Right.
We have to eat. We have to kill things in order to
Mm-hmm.
live. If a book can inspire anyone, even yourself, just to kind of like put it together and get you excited about your day and bring some joy to you. So if you can find a way to make your own art, and there's so many ways to be creative that's not just drawing. Art isn't just, it's like being creative with your life. And so if you can be inspired through behaving in that vein, you should be able, you're doing good. You're contributing. You're helping mitigate your karma,
Mm-hmm.
and by giving back some of yourself.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so trying to convince myself, like, yeah, just do it. Like, don't let that voice win.
Right.
Keep making steps towards making that book, because yeah, I don't know how many millions of ideas I've had, that I've been like, oh, that's amazing, and then I forget about it because I'm like, it's basically like just wisps of dreams or something
Mm-hmm.
that feel superfluous, or feel extra, or feel like, well, if I had time, or if I wasn't so busy being practical. But that's the real myth, or at least it's only half the story. Is I don't know. That was quite a ramble, but
Well, no, I appreciate it, man, because it speaks to something that I was thinking about earlier too. Is that like how many freaking podcasts are there? Like really,
right.
a lot, a lot. Do we
Yes.
really need another one? But like, who's talking about the Mayan calendar? Who's relating
Who
it
is
to real
talking about
life?
mind?
Like,
I mean, and
there.
we should see it in our algorithm. If our technology is paying attention, if it's listening to what we're
Mm-hmm.
saying and talking and what we're looking up, and if the cookies are working, they should be sending us those YouTube videos, those channels where they're doing the Mayan calendar. Yeah.
Well, on that note, there is. I have been getting fed that because I do it
Oh,
all the time. There is
okay.
one group of people that are talking about it, and it's the Mayan Wisdom Project. I tried to look at this up. I think the
Ah,
last podcast we
right.
did,
Okay.
and they are actually like people from the Mayan culture that have
Okay.
grown up and kept the teachings, and now they're spreading the word because it's time. That's
Yeah.
probably part of why we're doing it, because it's time.
Well,
Like
so
the
yeah,
world
we're
needs to
just,
know.
in a sense, we're kind of just fanboys, but like,
Yeah.
but at the same thing, like, well, at Unexpected Productions, the improv theater that I'm a part of, we did a hip opera
Oh, nice.
a year before Hamilton came out, but it doesn't matter, because now,
Right.
and we did subsequent runs of the show, but it was an fully improvised hip opera, so it's still different than Hamilton, but it basically
Right.
just like before hip operas were like cool because of Hamilton, we were already doing our own version of one. And for the most part, it was a bunch of white people doing it, and so we had to talk about that, like, are we appropriating and stuff? It's like, no, we're trying to be authentic to it. So it's the same thing here. I feel like, we are fans of the Mayan culture. We think there's something really, that they were onto something, and
Yeah.
and I'll continuously bring up the fact that I don't think it's just the Mayans. I think if you look at any ancient culture, like, they have lots. They were paying attention to stuff that we're just not paying attention to these days,
Mm-hmm.
and so. In terms of also the value of a podcast like this, not just another podcast, but it's like, if if we reach, we've already made jokes about not having an audience, but like, this is inspiring for us. Like, we're just getting to have this conversation, and if we enjoy having this conversation and it gets us excited about learning more, or sharing more, or inspiring each other, then it's a good thing. If
Yeah.
anybody else happens to come across it and is interested or thinks that, like, what are these crazy guys talking about? Great, right? Like, or if they think we're crazy and they're like stupid or wasting our time, that's also good. Like, I would also be into that. It's like you're paying attention, so you're giving it your attention. So it's like there
Mm-hmm.
must be something here that's like either like needling you. If you think we're appropriating because we're trying and we're wrong about how we're describing it, great. Like you're engaging in the conversation.
Yeah.
And ultimately the goal is, I think, is to get to the truth. What is real? What's happening out there, and what
Mm-hmm.
can we learn from it?
Yeah, for real. On that idea, I have the books that I've collected over the
Oh,
years
good.
that
Yeah.
have
Bring out the
taught me a
books.
lot about the Mayan culture and how it all works and everything. Um, this one, the transformation of consciousness and the Mayan calendar
Mm-hmm.
by Dr. Carl Johann Kalimann.
Okay.
This was the first book I ever found on it, and this is what basically told me that it worked. It wasn't the cotter key, the linchpin that proved to me that this is all working perfectly. But it is the thing that was like, okay, there's some validity to all of this stuff, and it's not just the long count calendar. I don't even remember what it's called now. It's been so long.
Uh,
But it's the long count calendar that it's like reset on 20 December 21st, 2012. That was
right.
just like the turning over of the dial, like in your odometer on your car. It was like, oh,
Oh,
look,
okay.
it's all zeros, except there's one way at the end, which is really just describing how much time has passed. Holy crap, that's a lot of
It was
zeros,
just
you know?
it was just their Y2K. It
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
Mayan
yeah. And I mean,
Y2K.
even then, like, it's yeah, it's just not nearly as destructive as it was portrayed to be by the
Right.
media. You know, it wasn't
Well,
even close.
that's also kind of emblematic too, since this seems to be a theme of what we're talking about. Emblematic of, yeah, like, because Mayan culture isn't talked about in any significant way in American culture, right? Like, or it's just not, or the media is known for kind of giving you the boilerplate or the boiled down or the whatever you want to call it. It's basically just easy, or whatever is most will get the most eyeballs because it's most outrageous or
Mm,
extreme. End of the world. Like,
yeah.
that's what's gonna get eyeballs, and so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But so yeah, I mean, hopefully, by having avenues where you're diving deeper into the literature, as you just
Hmm.
showed. I need to borrow one of those books, by the way,
Yeah,
just
you got it.
because. Um, is that the good one to start with? Is the
Transformation of consciousness. Yeah, I
yeah.
really enjoy this one because it's got just a depth of information that he has just put into a very, very good, reference. You know,
Oh,
like,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, reference
That's
guide.
when I was talking about infographics. I'm thinking when we're talking about the deer signs, like, that'd be nice to just be able to pop that up and edit that right into this stuff, right
Right.
into these. We'll get there. We'll get there, folks. Um, because yeah, I think ultimately it would be kind of really nice to have a day by day, like, or week by week. I mean, eventually, if we were doing a day by day thing, it'd be kind of fun to, like, let everybody know, like, hey, here's what's going on broadly speaking, cosmically,
Yeah.
take it at, with a grain of salt, take it at, and let it see how it informs, see how it, because that all that's really doing is asking you to pay attention more in life,
It really is.
and
Yeah.
in a day and age where um, we have this illusion. This was something that I wrote down in my little journal recently. I've been trying to write every day, and I know that that's going to be helpful overall to kind of like organize. Where it started out strong, and I was like writing like for a solid 5 minutes. In the last week, it's kind of broken down where I'm like, okay, these are the themes that have been running through my head, and I just get a note down about each one. But one of them was fascinate, and just kind of like I also have an idea of something that I want to do where I kind of like put a word that I've been thinking about, and then just like the 0 to 10 book, draw out what that word. Because fascinate, I'm sure if you looked at like the Latin etymology or whatever, and also like the Spanish facil means easy, facilitate. You look at the root word, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
means easy. Like fascinate means easily, like your attention, because to be fascinated is to be like, oh, what is that? What's going on? And so it's grabbed your attention. And I think in this day and age, our attention is grabbed by, I don't know, the new technology, the new funny, the new hotness, whatever that is, and so it's good to be aware of what you're fascinated by, and
Mm-hmm.
if you can be aware of that, that's the first step to greater awareness, greater consciousness. Is if you can be like, well, okay, yeah, I'm scrolling on Instagram, but I'm aware that that's what I'm doing. So
Mm-hmm.
you probably like cut the habit a little bit shorter. Like there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like go ahead and have your fun, but you might just be like, if you're aware of it, rather than like, oh, what, I've been scrolling for, geez, 30 minutes, right?
Right.
That means you weren't aware. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can think about what you're fascinated by or have that awareness. I forget where this started, but like uh, it reminded me of that I wrote down about fascinate in that word,
Mm-hmm.
and
That you were writing more.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So ultimately, if this was a daily thing, that we'd be able to kind of bring folks' attention to what's going to happen today. And it's not necessarily like it's predicting the future. It's just saying these are things to look out for. And so when something happens and it triggers, you're like, oh, that was going to or it doesn't. It means that you were paying attention and looking for things to happen a certain way. And so that's
mm-hmm.
where ultimately too, I think, like horoscopes, people kind of like put their own little veiled lens over it and like, oh, well, the horoscope or astrology's not real, or like it's pseudoscience. It's not even science. It's all woo woo. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's something else getting in that's blurring your vision. That's some other voice. Is that who you want to be? Is that who you want to believe? Uh, or do you want to believe that there's mystical? There's really magic out there. Like
Yeah.
that sounds more much more exciting. Like not that you need to believe in like things that aren't real. I don't know. That's too
Yeah. Yeah.
much. That's too
Well,
deep.
well.
I'll
I
go off
mean,
on a wall you there. Yeah.
dude, I love that you brought that up because I mean, sure, a lot of people just attribute astrology to just fanciful thinking and disempowerment because you're giving your energy over to some other person's idea of what you should be. But I love to think about it in the most scientific way possible, right?
Cool.
So if you think about it this way, like you as a fetus are developing in basically a Faraday box, right? A shield. A Faraday shield or box is an electromagnetic barrier, right? You're
Hmm.
not going to receive anything permeating through that box. You're basically isolated. And then it's like, well, why is it a Faraday box? Well, if you look at the situation that you're in, you're in a body, right, which is generating its own electromagnetic field. Why is it generating that field? Because your heart is pumping magnetic fluid through at a constant and predictable rate, right? Your body is filled with iron. That's what your blood is. Iron is
That's
magnetic, right?
Yeah.
And so like when you've oxygenated that blood, it becomes that much more powerful, right? You're adding that catalyst, that burning mechanism. So you not only are you creating like this shield with the metal, you're also creating like this fiery energy around it, and you're still receiving information right through your mother's umbilical cord. You're receiving all the information through her senses, and it's tapped directly into you. So you're downloading constantly all this information. Now, once you leave that Faraday box, ironically a box, which is another euphemistic term for anyway. You are suddenly exposed fully to the energies of the universe, and that puts a stamp on your body, right? And so like if
The
you
moment, yeah, the moment you are released into the world, that's what all the astrology. That's why your birthday
and
is
position on the
the
planet is
position,
very important.
right? Because that's
So
where all the energies were at that moment, where you were like, "I'm here."
here we
I
are,
think your first time.
right? And that's when you're disconnected from your mother, usually shortly thereafter. Hopefully naturally, but quite often in medical
Right,
practice, it's not done that way. It's cut
right.
instead of letting it just come out naturally, which it does with the placenta. Anyway, I'm
But now
diverting.
you are your own person.
Right.
You're independent. I mean, you're still you're independent. You're like your own being now. Like this is the start of your beingness. We're all interconnected ultimately all the time, always. But yeah, you're just that umbilical cord separation is like your first moment. It's a big change. It's a big transformation,
Right. Yeah.
and so it's marked by where the positions of everything in the cosmos is at that moment when you come online.
Yeah. And so like that first exposure imprints a stamp, like when magma solidifies, it
Mm.
orients to the north, right? It orients to magnetic north. Yeah,
Okay.
right. Yeah, so all those flakes just align as it's solidifying and
Whoa.
crystallizing to magnetic north. Now, if you
You're
think
not
about
seeing it. You're not seeing it to the naked eye, but that they're doing that because they're going through a transformation and they're orienting as they go through a different state, liquid to solid. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
so
Well,
now if you think about it even further, like what is a planet? It's a giant electromagnet,
oh
right?
man.
So it's
Yeah.
spinning, it's creating its
Yeah.
own magnetic, and most of the planets are bigger than ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got way more elements attached to them. They've got or different elements in different quantities, and so like these things in position to the background stars are solidifying, crystallizing in you based off of the energies that are piggybacking
Right.
off of
Oh.
where they are,
Well,
right?
yeah.
So to say that Jupiter being in Gemini, for example, that has no bearing, it's just like, no, that has a lot of bearing. You're just not looking at it in the right perspective.
Right.
And then so like it all imprints on your body, and as these things shift through, it's going to affect you differently. Like it
Yeah.
has so if it's say like imprinted here, just as an arbitrary example, and you
Right.
feel this thing going around you, it's just like it's gonna pull and it's gonna affect you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
because they're so far away, it's going to be a lot more subtle, and it's going to be
Right.
more of an emotional, mental, energetic
Mm-hmm.
appearance as opposed to
Yeah.
necessarily a physical one, but it's still affecting you.
You know, it would be really cool if there was. This is for some. This will exist someday because they already have all of our data. But like it'd be really cool to meet everybody that was born at the same day and time as you, or
Yeah.
right? Like if there's a database for that, because then you
Mm-hmm.
can meet people and figure out where the parallels are, but also because they were born on a different part of the planet and in a different context, right? Like how those things manifest in different ways, so that you could actually really kind of get a at least pseudo objective view of like what it's like to be somebody born at the same time. It's kind of like finding your astrological twin, like we have astrological twins. Probably not, because I mean I'm sure there's just like fragments of seconds, and that's a lot of distance to travel for all the different things that have like even subtle impacts on you. Like even if a fraction of a second somebody was born, there's so many differences too in the time and space of where they're born and the context of where they're born, and then that just gets extrapolated. So taking all of that into account, what still lines up, what parallels still hold true about the themes of your lives, because the things that horoscopes or the Mayan Nawal show is like, ooh, like to the point where they're like, it does feel popcorny, because like, oh, you should be a teacher or a psychologist or a mathematician, and it's like, well, really, but to the extent that we are also made aware of our own natural talents, like how rare is it for somebody to feel like, oh, I just fell into this, I love it, and how many people get to do what they truly love for a living in this
Mm-hmm.
world that we live in today? It's like it feels like not very many people, but also because there's so many, there's no attention being paid to deeply what's going on in our core. It's so hard to do. It is truly difficult, and then therefore that's why it's difficult to find our way towards that thing that really fills us up.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it would be neat if we would be able to kind of connect with those people, because you can have a little community of people like, oh gosh, being a being a storm, it's rough, right? Like I don't know, like
Bro, yeah. No,
the
dude.
road, it's tough, right? People are walking
Bro,
on us all the time. Yeah, yeah.
dude. Do you know have any clue how many times I've met people that are the same symbol as me, just with a different tone, the different
Yeah.
number pairing with them, that like experience a lot of the same things and like end up in a
Hmm.
lot of the same professions.
How about
Like
that? Yeah.
maybe it's just slightly different aspect of it, but they're still doing those things. And so I love how you said it was a little bit popcorny. It's like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Ironically, like before I even found the Tzolk'in calendar, like I had done a lot of those things already. Like, and
Mm.
they were just like for my symbol, the road. It quite often says like you should be a merchant. It was like selling stuff that
Hmm.
I've been in food service. I don't know how many times, and a lot of the times I'm in the front of the store, and I have the
Wow.
most fun doing that because I get to talk to people all day. I just get to brighten their day with a smile and give them the thing that they
Yeah.
want, a little exchange of money for whatever, and it's like uh, uh, for the one job that I worked, it was like Orange Julius. Like they depended on me being there for certain secret shoppers because I was
Yeah. Like
the customer service guy. Like I had
wow.
the
Yeah.
best customer service because I'm just there.
The
Hey, what's going
energy.
on? How you doing,
Yeah.
man? Good to see you.
The energy you're going to bring is unparalleled because you feel like in the right place. Like you're in your mode there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
totally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, like,
Hmm.
that is a good way to spend the younger part of your years, right? But
Ah,
it's also an indicator. The whole thing, the cross, as you've seen with my Mayan sign, is a good indicator of where you're going too. So
hmm.
the symbol that I'm led towards is the sun, which tend to be artists and actors and
Hey,
things of
what are you
this
doing talking to me?
variety.
Yeah, what are you doing in your play, Big Fish? Oh my gosh,
Right?
totally.
And so let's see. Just
So
just
you're a
to pull it
merchant.
up real
You,
quick.
you're a merchant that needs to be in connection with artists so that you can, yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
again, as a road, so that you can get them where they need to go.
Right. Yeah. And I
Whoa.
mean, and even the week that you're born has that influence on it too. Like for us, it's the week of the dog, the week of
Dog, yeah.
manifestation, right? The week of loyalty. Like these things are imperative to our existence, you know. So the week that we're in right now is the week of taking, of conclusion, of knowing where you end, but it's also about magic and growth. It's like, yeah, I know where I begin and where I end, but that doesn't mean I still can't grow in different ways, right?
Mm. Oh,
So
so that's
like,
what you're saying too, why it's very poignant, the big fish thing, knowing where he ends.
right.
Gotcha.
It's
Oh,
very
whoa.
liberating to know that you do
Oh,
end. Yeah,
yeah.
you died. You got to accept
Doesn't
that.
mean doesn't mean that you, yeah, don't. I mean, there's still the pathway to get there,
Mm-hmm.
which could have anything along the way. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's
Whoa.
all manner of growth to be had in that pathway. All manner of magic to observe, experience, and to
Mm.
be, to be a part of. That's and weirdly enough, there's a
More books?
actually this one is is a movie or not a movie but a series. Primal. You ever see this? Getty Tartakovsky. He's the guy that created, or is a huge influencer, co-creation of the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory,
Oh, okay.
Samurai Jack. All
Right.
these really cool cartoons that our generation grew up on and with. And there's
Mojo
a
Jojo.
Mojo Jojo, right? Deer,
Ah,
deer
yes.
symbolism all over the place in this series. Even so much so that there's a ritual ceremony that happens in it, where which plays a big theme in his cartoons and artwork is this black goo, which is identified in Samurai Jack as being of Aku, right?
Right.
But this black primordial goo is present in Primal during this ceremony, and there's deer symbolism rife within it. Even
Yeah.
Aku himself, like,
Right.
is like a
And
representation of a like a deer god, if you will.
mm,
Doesn't mean necessarily that he's benevolent,
right.
even though he does create this technological, you could call wonder, but ultimately it's destroying the world because of the negative influence that it has.
Hmm.
But so like there's a lot that's going on with magic. Is what my point is the magic with this day in particular.
Hmm.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it's also the blue day. It's of the blue direction, which if you just add and saturate blue to its most extent, it's imperceivable from being black, right?
Oh, okay.
And that's actually how they create black paint a lot of the time. is just super saturated blue or green.
Concentrate from blue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or reds too. So that's why if you blend a different kind of black with the two different kinds of black, you could end up with having like this purple color under certain lights.
Huh. Whoa.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty trippy.
Well, red, green, and blue are the primary colors of light.
As far as we perceive, yeah.
Right. At least the spectrum that we is visible to us. But yeah, interesting that you can make black by with the pigment of them just by concentrating it enough. It'll get deeper and darker and deeper and darker and deeper and darker the more you concentrate it until you've got yourself what at least appears to be black.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So
the goo.
The goo. So really, I mean, that could just be a total reference to that. Getty Tartakovsky obviously knows a lot about spiritual and metaphysical knowledge. Like I mentioned this. I think it was like on the second podcast or something. Minds Unveiled. It's a YouTube channel. And I think they throw some wild stuff out there, man. But like, a lot of it makes sense if you just take a second to just open your mind and look at things from a different perspective. And the one that I was referring to in that sense was a video called "Are the Powerpuff Girls Homunculi?"
Yeah, what are homunculi? We did reference this.
Yeah. So they're homunculus is a tiny human in a vessel, generally a glass vessel. There's actually a really good anime called Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood that just goes into some crazy detail about alchemy and spiritual knowledge. And a big part of their entire story is about homunculus, which is a soul in a bottle, basically. Yeah. And what are the Powerpuff Girls created with? The things that make little girls
sugar, spice
and everything nice. And chemical X accidentally being added. And that like little idea that it's accidentally added, is very serendipitous. He didn't mean to, but because he did add it unintentionally, it created this beautiful thing, right? That happened to be benevolent because of the influences that it was given.
That's thematically common. I mean, in general, where accident creates superpower. Like, I don't know about other homunculi, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, radioactive goo gets on these turtles, and they're kind of like similar to the Powerpuff Girls in that, like, each color represents like a kind of different attitude, or a different
personality.
Kind of personality. And then, what was the other one that I was thinking of? Even just like Spider-Man, like he gets inadvertently bit by a, radioactive or some sort of spider that transforms him, and gives him these abilities. It's like that. An accident is what creates the supernatural. So often, very rarely is someone like a Superman, and Superman gets boring very quickly. Well, I guess it's kind of is it an accident that he ends up on Earth? I mean, and then just Earth has the qualities that make him a Superman, because otherwise it's like back on his home planet, he's just like everybody else. They only become, that's the kind of Superman. So like, it's almost I'm starting to think now, like, is it almost imperative that an accident happens in order for the supernatural to manifest?
So, I was just kind of thinking that accident, I mentioned serendipitously, but it could just be the hand of God touching the incident and forcing a situation to happen
Wait,
from its
you
own
said hand of
will.
God. Did you mean Chemical X? Because like even Chemical X, like how do you make Chemical X? You know, like I know this is just a a cartoon show, but like Chemical X, how do you make that radioactivity? How do you make that special spider so that it lives with the ability that, like not the ability, but like just the, I don't know, uh, it is the juice. It's the goo
Yeah,
that that if with just the right context or in the right situation, like how did life begin in the first place? You know, the prevailing theory is that there was some primordial goo that maybe got like a lightning bolt, or it's just already charged enough, and then it just allowed for enough change and transformation to happen to a couple of, like, because it couldn't have been organic material. There wasn't anything organic yet. Anyway, right? So
right.
that happened, but it
Mm-hmm.
happened, and now we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
so it is core. It's core and it's fundamental to our understanding, or at least from what we can tell, of how things come to be, how
yeah.
things start. It's like just a right mixture. It's some
Mm-hmm.
sort of perfect mixture,
Well,
and then just zap, like oh whoops,
uh,
dink.
right. Yeah, everything just lines up right and just boom, almost spontaneously, it's there and it's perfect. There's actually that same channel, that same video, they kind of go into what is Chemical X. I mean, they do relate it back to Aku because it's a chain of cartoons by the same artist, and it's technically all in the same universe.
Hmm.
But within the Powerpuff Girls itself, the one of the major antagonists, Mojo Jojo, he creates his own version of the Powerpuff Girls, the Rowdy Rough Boys, right? By using the things that make up little
Yeah.
boys, right? Snips and snails and puppy dog tails, and Chemical X. And the Chemical X that he obtains is not like the same thing that Professor Utonium has. He's Mojo Jojo's in jail, right? He's in prison, and the thing that he finds that is Chemical X is some fermented something or other in a toilet bowl, right? Yeah, which could be a fermented jail alcohol, right? Because that's where they make like a jail sangria, is in the
Hmm.
toilet, right? Because it's
Right.
the only source of water that nobody's gonna mess with if you don't flush it. Or some other concoction of disgusting matter that just didn't get flushed and is now just this pool of semi-radioactive substance. And in the show, it's rather green in appearance, just like this
Hmm.
dingy, gross something or other. They never, of course, explain what it is. But Mojo Jojo takes a big whiff of it. He's like, "Whew, yep, that's Chemical X,"
Hmm.
and you find out later on through the series that he in fact could have known exactly what the smell of Chemical X was because he was Professor Utonium's pet monkey, right? So he even goes so far as to say, right? So he also like mentions that the moon is in the proper phase and alignment for
Ah,
the whole process to take place. So it
right.
could have been that same moon phase and alignment had happened during the creation of the Powerpuff Girls. They just wouldn't have known it because he wasn't paying attention. It just
Mm,
happened to be the right time,
right.
place for everything to coalesce, and all it needed was that extra little nudge to push it over the edge to create something beyond what was expected.
Right. Hmm. And well, so back to the day that we're on,
Mm-hmm.
like creation or like the start or the seed, right? Like
Yeah,
that's the tone that we're in right now.
Correct.
So it's the first day of the week of the deer, and it's the day of the deer.
Yes.
And so yeah. So in that sense, like, how can we look at the week ahead? Like, it's going to be influenced day by day by the other signs, but like the through line is going to be, major deer energy kind of stuff, or
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah. And so the best way to probably see the tree, if you will, would be to be look at the seventh day to see what the seed grows up into, right? Because the seventh day is prolific growth. It is the
right,
point in which the trunk, the leaves, the branches are being developed, right?
gotcha. It's manifesting itself as much as it's going to be before it starts working on what comes next.
Right.
When it starts working on the bloom and the flower and the fruit of what is the next week. Okay.
Yes,
So
exactly.
so the halfway point, which is nice that day 7, right? Because that's what we're more familiar with is 7-day weeks. It's a 13-day, and I was realizing too. We talked about this that if we did record this podcast on the same day, we'd actually nicely move across the days one by one, right? Like, because it's 13 days, if we did it on the same day, it would actually be perfect because we could kind of like move. It would be different every time, but there would be a single day shift. And not that I'm worried too about us like running out of things to talk about if we do end up talking about the same sign or and with a similar or the same tone or something in the future, because the context will be so much different by then,
Okay.
and it might be interesting to kind of go, oh, okay, so we look back at what we were talking about when we were talking about this sign, I don't know however long ago it was, and this is how it's flavored now. This is kind of yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. It's actually if you align it with the seasonal calendar, which the Mayan know as the Ha'ab, the travel of the Earth around the sun,
okay.
you get a 52-year cycle. So it takes 52 years for the Tzolk'in to line up perfectly again with the same day in the season
Oh,
as it did
gotcha,
the first time he took.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. Which is kind of, I like to think of it as like why a day in February, like a Tuesday, in February feels like a Tuesday in October, even though, or a Thursday in October, even though Tuesday doesn't always feel like Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? Like
No.
it just, so like just like every week, the days feel different.
Right.
Even though it's Monday and you might be exhausted and you got to go to work or whatever, it doesn't feel the same. Though,
Uh,
like every now and then, like a day in February, like early February, will feel like a day in mid October. You know, and so that's when the Tzolk'in is realigning or
okay.
restarting and coming back again.
So, so it would be like 52 years again before we have a June 3rd, or like not necessarily June 3rd, but like, or June 3rd,
Yeah,
like a June 3rd that is deer day 1,
exactly.
week of the deer. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. 52 years. Yeah, so that's a long time. We gotta do this podcast for a while like that so that we can have another June 3rd.
Right, have
But
all the
I mean,
iterations.
there is gonna. I mean, before that, every year there's a deer day 1,
Right. Yeah, every
right?
260 days there will be a repeat
260
of
days.
that day.
So 260 days is how long it takes to for the the Mayan year or the Noel calendar or the Tzolk'in calendar to move through all of the signs, all 20 signs, and with each one lasting 13 days. 13 days divided by, or 260 divided by 20 presumably would be 13.
Correct.
I'm doing some math now. I'm actually not doing any math. I'm logically deducing. Like I'm actually, I don't have to do any math. I just have to figure out. I'm putting puzzle pieces into place, and it's telling me the math. That's fun.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mayans. I mean, thank you all ancient civilizations for doing the math for us up until this point. We forget that too. We're standing on the shoulders of giants so that we can have our computers and our smartphones. They did, Pythagoras had to do his whole theorem, and man, that must have been hard to figure out before
Bro.
calculators. I don't know if there was an abacus around his room.
Probably,
Yeah.
but like even Pythagoras didn't come up with his theorem. Like he was
Oh, yeah?
sure a wealth of knowledge in the terms of mathematical information, but the Pythagorean theorem is probably a timeless understanding that we have
Oh,
just
sure.
stumbled upon. But
Right.
it gets credited to a guy in the Middle East 1,000 years or something like that, 600 years before Pythagoras.
Right.
Just there was a guy that already figured it out in the Fertile Crescent before
Yeah.
Pythagoras, the Greek, got it right. So
Who's the guy known for whose claim to fame is the world is not flat, it's actually round. Um,
Galileo,
Galileo, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And I'm sure he wasn't the first. Like I'm sure, like none of these people are the first. It's so interesting though too. Like, well, like even this. Catch me before I go too far off on this one, but like even Newton's like laws of physics, right? It's come to my understanding that we don't really know if other galaxies like follow the same rules of physics that ours do. Like we can only see, like see them operating, and maybe and even that is like distorted through millions of light years. I don't know. Anyway, like I'm just trying to taking a stab in the dark, but like so even Newton's laws of physics that we hold as like just a gold standard of it helps us. It's gotten us where we are today. Like a lot of it's a fundamental belief system to help us. I don't know, get trains moving, airplanes in the sky. I mean that's Bernoulli's principle. I don't know much about Bernoulli, but that's how planes get lift. These things, like the Wright brothers. I don't know if they knew about Bernoulli's principle, but they, how long? Like Leonardo da Vinci had plans for making planes. It's
Yeah.
been in the conscious mind, for since the beginning. I'm sure ever since we looked at a bird and we're like, oh, that'd be nice. Like, I wonder what that's like. I'd like to try that. Let me climb the highest tree I can. And that was the
Right.
last they saw of Grok.
Right.
But believing in the truth or the reality that it's possible, the timeline between that and when the person whose claim to fame ends up being that thing. Columbus discovering the New World. Okay, like according to who, right? Because it's like people were already living here, right? We're talking about the Mayans, we're talking about the
Right.
Aztecs. There was natives already here, like who are like, yeah, this part of the world exists. Where are you from? That doesn't exist. Until now. Like you're telling us it does, but like until we go there, it doesn't exist to us.
Right.
Yeah, so that's so funny. Like, and and this again, this is going to be maybe kind of too far out there, but like, that's not that any of these people. It does seem to be a very, egoist thing to do is to be like, this is my thing. This is what I discovered. But it doesn't. Sometimes that gets foisted on you, right? It's not necessarily like, oh, I meant to do this. Well, like Columbus, for example, like he was trying to find India, but ultimately he was just taking advantage of whatever he did find. Um, but in the same way that we talked about in the first episode, just like Bill Gates, I don't think he thought he was doing anything wrong.
Right.
He's like, yeah, this is God's gift to me, is whatever I choose to do. So,
Yeah. Well, I just so for like Columbus, like I think he was definitely aware that there was a new world, but in order to get the backing to go anywhere, he had to convince the person in charge of Spain at the time, was the person who gave him his actual funding, was that he was going to sail around the world and get to India so that he could shorten the
the
trade route
trade.
for the silk and the spices, right? The
Yes,
Silk Road.
it's an economic justification. He had to make a case that it was. I mean, so it didn't matter that, and he could still know that like it's a new world, but still like resources to take advantage of. So it's like regardless of what you believe, I will tell you the story that allows you to let me go and do this thing, because I know the rewards of it will be rich, and you'll fund future things, and I'll get to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was our last one where we were talking about the fountain, but that's kind of emblematic of that story or that idea or that kind of point of view of kind of the conquistador, or like the forging out for the fountain of youth, or and then needing to convince either yourself or somebody else that what you're doing is worthwhile, of eternal value.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Sort of like what we're doing right now.
We need to convince ourselves or somebody else that's like, hey, we appreciate what you're trying to do here. And
There's value to this.
on that note, it is like that reminds me. It's like, so let the folks who are the other podcast who are doing this more kind of direct, probably to, and probably have more direct resources for or interpretations, right? Let them have that niche of a niche, because I feel like what we're doing here, or at least what I'm bringing to this, is like, you're gonna give me most of what I know about the Mayan calendar, or calendars, and you're gonna let me do what I've been doing, which is kind of like spin it off or connect it to how we're living now, or and I feel like that's, I don't know, that's what really gets me going, is like how can we use this? How can we? That's my storm energy, because I'm all about community. I'm like, how can we bring this to the world today to help us heal and connect and get together, and weather the storm, so to speak. So that's the role I'm hoping that this podcast plays.
Sure. Yeah. I really appreciate that too, because I've been trying to figure out the best way to do that, to get this information out in mass and make it feel and sound and be practical
Right.
on all levels, because it affects everything on all levels, whether we're
Yeah.
consciously aware of it or not.
I think some crazy stuff has to happen. I mean, that's what generally it feels like people are afraid of, like the divisiveness in politics or whatever it is, like that we're careening towards, some sort of global catastrophe. What COVID might have been a preamble for, kind of just showed just kind of how shaky ground we're on right now, and yeah, what's it going to take for people to look to even what seems like either archaic, barbaric, or just ridiculous? Like, people are going to be looking for answers all over the place because they're not going to be able to trust institutions anymore. They're not going to be able to trust their doctor or whatever it is. I mean, that's, you can always see the seams of that, right? Like, if your doctor is prescribing you stuff that's just going to keep you on medication for a while and you're not questioning it, it's like, well, then you're going to be that statistic of people who were over medicated and then just, I don't know, ultimately disappeared. Like, versus like, okay, I'll maybe take a more holistic approach. There's a lot of woo-woo there too, and there's a lot of people taking advantage of that system as well. So you got to be careful. But ultimately, the idea is that something's got to give. Something's got to break to the point where people have to, or whoever's left is like, I'm either you narrow in and you're like, this is it, and if it doesn't work, then you're done for, or you broaden your view and you're like, which one seems to, where's the universe kind of guiding me to, and you figure it out slow but sure to go, I'm getting more life and good energy this way, so I'm going to keep going that way.
Yeah.
And it opens so that you're open, you're blooming.
Yeah.
You know, was it day 9?
Day 9 is the bud. Day 11 is the flower. So blooming
Yeah.
would be
So if you're flowering, that means that that's a successful opening. I think that's a successful openness to the new. I'm looking forward to day 9, I guess. I guess in 7 days we will. If we do this podcast again in 7 days, we'll be at day 8, which will be moving towards that. We'll be in transition from growth to the budding. Right, budding.
Yes.
And the flowering would be 11.
Correct.
And then the flower to the fruit is 11 to 13.
Yep.
Gotta love those transition days. The transition days seem to be, I would guess, are the harder days, because you're trying to transform stuff, and it feels like nothing's happening. It feels like nothing's happening, or it feels like everything's happening
all at once. Yeah.
So it's like hard to get from one stage to the next, and then the days that are odd numbers feel like, I just let me stay here for a little bit longer, or like I just got here. Oh, phew!
Right.
I need to take a load off.
Which is really what the even numbers are about, is to integrate all that information and all those explosive growth points or events into your reality, into your physicality, right?
So they should be the days kind of more of rest and digest, and then the days of the odd days are more the get ready for what's next.
Right.
Active.
And
We're
to that
this.
and to that idea, like, the Mayans often consider the odd days to be the days, and the even ones to be the nights, right? So you have that sunlight giving you all this information, all this energy, and there's active, right? And then you go into the next day where it's, like you said, rest and rejuvenation and integration. So you're taking that information and kind of processing it and moving in, getting ready for that next phase of growth.
Cool.
And so it's more passive. Yeah.
To that extent, I've started to recognize that my dreams, although I haven't remembered them in a couple of days, that my dreams have started to become more contemporary in terms of my life experience, where like up to like a year ago, in general, most of the dreams that I would remember, and they were fewer and farther between, but most of the dreams I remember would be like characters or people from my life 10, 15 years ago, regularly, consistently. And now it's like members of my family, and it's people that I've interacted with more recently are showing up in my dreams, like within weeks or within a month. And then so I was going to ask you, like with your dreams, with that day-night cycle in mind, it's like, so by the time that you're dreaming about it, it's probably like a day has passed. So it's probably the following night where you're processing the previous day's stuff, or I don't know, like that to some extent, that could be kind of the wave function of things. And, unless you're
Yeah.
like totally in tune, like 100% in tune, then you can process the things that happened to you that day, that night. Like if you're fully integrated and you're fully aware and you're processing things as they happen to you
Mm-hmm.
because you're meditating a lot and you're just like so present and you have a clear fluid day and you have just full cognition. I can see that it gets closer and closer to real time
Mm-hmm.
processing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
So I hadn't actually tracked that. That's actually something very interesting, fascinating,
mhm,
if you will.
sure.
Uh,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
yeah.
I got
But you got me, man. You hooked me. Just like a fish.
you.
But
Yes.
I think it's very probable that the dream phase could happen after a day cycle. So a full like light day cycle. And then in your dreams, you're processing those of major events, so that the next day, when in your night cycle,
Ah,
you're able to think about it, process it, and integrate it before you go into the next phase.
gotcha. So it's more or less. I mean, it makes sense that it's like it just made me think of like, oh, okay, like the time frame or the time scale of my own dreams
Mm-hmm.
is shortening. It's coming up closer to real time, you know, uh, and and how that might be related because it sounds because what you're saying now, it sounds to me like, well, yeah, there's a day and there's a night, and you process, you get downloads during the day because of what your life experience, and then you process at night, and that happens. But there's also like a day night cycle of days. So like
Correct.
where a day is, yeah, exactly. So it's like and even with that, right? Like I can
Mm-hmm.
see the skeptic mind wants to go like already that's like that's too hard to wrap a head around because it's like day is day and night is night. Like what are you guys talking about?
Right.
Um, and it's not like there are. God, this already sounds crazy, but like even days, night days, or processing days, rest and digest days that where you're very active. You're doing during the day. You're doing
Mm-hmm.
something all day long. There's lots of stuff coming in, and you're downloading lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that could also be part of why you lose track, or you don't have you memories are harder to process or something those days. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot to do on a day where you should be processing things,
Mm-hmm.
should is also like in quotes here because it's not like again these are guidelines, right? It's like you're of course able to do whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
but if you want to go with the flow of the universe and stuff and ride the wave and have things feel like they happen easily, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to want to match up or align as many of these things as you can, and you should find that in doing so, things just kind of just happen
Yeah.
well and the way that you want and
Mm-hmm.
kind of just manifest appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the way you said that. It's like that's why I usually equate it to following a by following the Mayan calendar. You're taking your skiing experience from blindly traveling down a black diamond that you've never done before or never had the experience of skiing even before to having a bunny slope experience where it's like you see what's going on ahead of you, it's easily trackable. There might be something that happens, right? Like there's a little bit of snow melt or whatever, or maybe there's another person on the run that cuts you off or whatever because they're more experienced. but you can move a little bit easier with that situation and handle it a lot better. So yeah, that's a great way to approach it. That thought of riding the wave and making it a lot easier.
Yeah, because like our brains can get bogged down with the words, and that's what I'm finding is like we uh, are that's what I struggle with a lot too. Or like I'm fascinated with semantics and how words are defined, and um, it's too distracting because it's like it's also like because I probably spend a lot of time about it. Like I can get very creative with words, or like when I think about fascinate, nobody like it's rare for people to think about it as deeply probably as I will because I'm like and I don't do it all the time. I don't do it with every word, but like when I do think about a word, I'm like, oh, let's break it down. Or this has happened with my wife too. Like when I listen to music, I'll listen to the lyrics probably before. Most people, I mean, I do too. I listen to the beat too, and I'm like, oh, this has a good vibe. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the easiest thing to attach yourself to and to get fascinated
Mm-hmm.
with. Is like, oh yeah, this just feels good. Or even if it's just something more melodic, it's like, oh, I like the feel of this. Um, um, but the lyrics, or if there are lyrics, uh, have the most complex information in them. And I'm really bad. I have a history, I guess, of being bad at remembering lyrics. Like, I can sing parts of songs, but
Mm-hmm.
like the whole song. Oh gosh, what was the song that we were singing? You were singing. It was you were singing a Goofy movie, which is one of my favorite Disney movies.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
You're able to sing like all the lyrics of at least one or two of the songs, and I'm like, like I know some good chunks of it, but it takes me a long time to learn the words, and which is interesting because I think it's kind of one of those that which you I don't know, maybe it's like one of those things that would be, I don't know, that would take a whole meditation to figure out for me is like
Mm-hmm.
why I seem to be so fascinated by it, but unable to really soak it in. But ultimately, I think that's getting back to what I'm trying to say is like, uh, uh, it's so deep, or like I'll get so deep on it, like I don't even know what the word means anymore, or like I don't know, like it's so core that I'm like so meticulous about it that it's like, or that's it, like that I put more of an emphasis on vocabulary and like knowing, like even with the word right before this. What was the word? It started with a P. I looked it up. Because I was saying things that my
Pontificate.
pontificate. Yeah, I was pontificating. I'm doing it right now. Uh, like I wanted to make sure that I used the word correctly. That I have kind of a fixation on that. That I'll use words even if I don't know what they mean because they feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about 50-50. Sometimes I'll find out no, that word doesn't isn't the right word. What's fun is that sometimes it feels right to that it still felt right to say that word, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of it feels like me like that's where language is an art, and it's like I want that word to have more meaning. I want to fill it with more meaning so that it also means this thing, and that's how words have worked historically. If people start using them a little bit differently, than they're traditionally
Mm-hmm.
used, then that's how you get a definition in a dictionary that has one, two, three, four, five different definitions of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that wouldn't happen unless people were trying to make new uses of words. And that's how we get slang, and that's how we get euphemisms and all the like. So it's a fascinating world of words. I'm sorry
Yeah,
for
man.
that whole
Oh no, no,
that
no.
whole
That's a
pontification.
no, no. It's good. It is a great trail of thought. I do enjoy using as many words as I can, and to use them properly to add more complexity to my language, and it gets easier the more you read. Like, I
Mm.
know for a fact that before I started reading plays and started doing stuff on stage and exposing myself to more works of, say, Shakespeare beyond like what our high school curriculum forced us to do
Right.
with like Romeo and Juliet, because it's the only one that we can really latch on to in that age. It's like, oh, I'm a teenager, yeah, I'm experiencing love for the first time.
Love
Yeah, I
at
think,
first sight.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh my god, and I'm sure there's some uh
It's also like it's all in that vein. It's also crazy because it's like, oh, like fall in love. You're a teenager reading Romeo and Juliet for the first time. Fall in love, and if it doesn't work out, kill
kill
yourself.
yourself, yeah.
Oh, great! That's a great message for teenagers. Yes. Oh
Right?
gosh.
Yeah. It makes that seem like it's an option. So I mean, like, what's really happening here? Like, because I'm
I
sure
mean,
there's other, like, you could have had us do As You Like It, which is about youths coming of
mm,
age and finding love, but in like a very impractical way. Of course,
mm.
there's a lot of cross dressing that happens in there, so it
Oh,
probably
can't
wouldn't
have
be more
that.
relevant until, say, college, because there's a lot more of that
Well,
happening
these
there
days, I don't know.
these
These days,
days.
you
Yeah,
could. We'll see. I
you could
mean,
possibly, but
depends on
I
where you
mean,
live.
right, yeah, but I mean that also feels like to me a forced agenda, but I don't really want to go
It,
into that.
totally, but I mean, what isn't? I mean, what isn't in terms of when it comes to art and having children or young minds um, uh, take it in and interpret what
Mm-hmm.
they will. I mean, because like chances are, again, the vibe that I get is that most kids aren't interested anyway. They're gonna Cliff Notes or these days they'll AI. What's Romeo and Juliet about? Oh, okay, cool. That's
Mm-hmm.
enough to get the grade, and then they'll stop paying attention. If we were more open to exploring these ideas at early ages, it would take away the, I don't know, just like when weed became legal, it became less cool to do. Like it takes away the kind of like the nefarious energy, that kind of like, ooh, I'm going against the grain, that rebellious nature of it. Oh, it's just accepted now. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of miss that element of it being kind of bad. If and then so it makes it less fun. Okay, maybe I don't. Maybe I'll find my kicks elsewhere. And so if you're, and it does feel weird, but I think it's because we were enculturated to feel this way,
Mm-hmm.
to expose yourself to controversial works of art. I mean, like we read Huckleberry Finn, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there great works of art are able to find their way in to those areas. I mean, and that's why I like getting obsessed with my idea. How could it how can I um, how can I lower the value of, I'm just talking about numbers, right? For my book about 0 through 10, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I like bring them, like taint them, I guess, taint the character of numbers by giving them dimension, giving them um, personality, and in a sense, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to corrupt your idea, your wholesome idea of numbers. Numbers is math, but there's nothing sexy about numbers. But like, look deeper, and you'll see that everything is there within them. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so I'm hoping that's what I can create out of it. But same with any kind of work of art. It's like it's trying to expose you to that thing. Catcher in the Rye. Like I got to read Catcher in the Rye. I performed in Macbeth. I was lucky enough to perform in Macbeth, and that's just like a bloodlust play in high school. And
Just
so
knocking
so it's
on wood
like
here, brother.
knocking
You're
on wood
invoking,
that,
yeah, yeah. You're invoking the
oh
Scottish play
oh
here, bro. I mean,
right, what do I
you're
got
in
to do,
your
spin around a
home,
bunch of
so I
times?
mean,
I mean I don't know if I'm superstitious,
yeah,
these
no, and
days.
I feel you. Like, I mean, the validity of hoodoo and voodoo is that you believe in the practices. But I've been in that show, and I've seen the ramifications of what
Oh
happens when you
right.
don't respect it. So it's just like,
So
I've
so
been like
everything.
into the spiritual realm for a long time, and I've seen crap go down when someone's not paying attention
So
or
in
going against it directly.
so that's so yes. I'm not. So that's interesting. So I'm superstitious then in the sense that like I wouldn't say it on purpose just to spite because that's how you're going to get yourself into trouble. I think, like by saying the Scottish play by name in a way where you're like you are aware, like it's like you know what you're doing and you don't care, so
Hmm.
you're going to do it anyway. Then that's a sign of you not caring more broadly, and so it's a symbol or it's a symptom of your lack of regard, a lack of
Hmm.
awareness. And so yeah, shit's gonna happen,
Hmm.
and I can see just like Chemical X or something, a right uh, amalgamation, a right chemistry of a group, and somebody says it somewhere in as the play is coming together that whoever most resembles that energy in a negative way or lack of awareness way are going to be the ones that get caught up in the bad that ends up happening because of it. And it's going to impact everybody else, but I'm just thinking, yeah,
I mean that's a great
that's my theory.
example. That's a great example of people just showing their colors and it being easily extrapolated into what their personality is more like. If you're
Mm,
disregarding something that people really just are taking to it as a truism and doing it on purpose, well,
right.
then you're a contrarian and you're intentionally going to go against things even if it hurts you in the long run or hurts others. I have three
Right.
examples of that show causing mayhem in three different instances with
I mean,
a lot of
confirmation
time
bias.
before.
I'm just going to say right now, confirmation bias for all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
no, just
let's go into it. I had the first time I played in the Scottish play, I had somebody who was, very, very intelligent, very sensitive to a lot of spiritual things, like seeing apparitions and, feeling the energy in a room, possibly hearing people's thoughts, because they're open and aware. But she had gone to England, and studied and like had come back and she's just got this wealth of knowledge and experience and every Shakespearean show that she's a part of and directs is beautiful. But she knew that when she was doing this that there was energy about it because there's literally a hex. There's literally witchcraft written into the show, right?
hmm
You've got the three witches doing their
hmm
brew thing, and like I'm not gonna invoke it, but like we all know the little rhyme they do. So it's in pop culture all over the place. And so, like, she was intentionally focusing that bad energy towards herself in order to protect the cast and the theater. Well, shit was happening to her. Like, she fell through her deck. Like, she ended up scraping up her whole leg. Like, she's had issues just happen to her left and right. And then, like, by the last weekend of the show, she just couldn't be there anymore. She's just like, I gotta take hands off, guys. I'm sorry. Like, I want to be there for closing weekend, but I'm just exhausted. I'm beat up. I got stuff I gotta go do. Like, best of luck to you. Like, break all the legs, da 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 da. And that first night, when she wasn't there, shit was awry. There was stuff going on. It's like, what the hell is this? And then it hit me in the middle of the run. It's like, oh my god, she's been running
What?
fades for us this whole time, and that's why this bad stuff's been happening to her. So unless somebody does something in that realm, this is going to continue happening, and we're just going to have a horrible ending to our show. So I started pulling focus, and started happening to me left and right, but like the rest of the show went off without a hitch after that point. It was totally bizarre. The next example that I have is one of the directors is the same space, but like months, possibly years apart, and he was talking about how he just didn't believe in any of that stuff. So like he started breaking all the rules. Like he started whistling, he started saying the name of the Scottish play.
You're not allowed to whistle?
Right, yeah, whistling in a theater space is bad luck. Unless it's directly in the show, like the name of the Scottish play, unless you're doing the thing that's part of the show,
Right.
it's not good for you. It's not
That
by
one come
reputation.
from?
I
Where's that
forget
one?
what it is, but it's like I got it
That's a
told to me, and
bummer.
I was like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually." Whoops, because I've
That's a
been doing
bummer.
that quite a bit.
Because
Right.
whistling while you work can be a lot of fun. I mean, I can understand maybe in a theater space when you're rehearsing and stuff, it can how distracting and it can be when you're trying to prepare a presentation
Mm-hmm.
of something. Whistling
Mm-hmm.
is more for hard labor, to kind of
Mm,
let it. You're already doing a play, so
right.
a
Well,
representation of life. So I can see where it's just kind of juxtaposed in there, where it's not
yeah.
necessarily appropriate.
Well, then there's also I found this out through Rogan's podcast when he had Joey Diaz on there, and they were talking about Santeria. There's one of the saints of Santeria. If he's your saint, you can't whistle inside. Otherwise, he's gonna leave you. And you're gonna be left without any of your gifts or protection.
There's too many
Um,
rules, man. Like if you think about all the superstitions and rules and things that you can't see and you're not aware of, like you should be so lucky to be aware of what you are aware of, and then discipline yourself to follow those rules until they don't work for you anymore, and then you have to know how to replace that one with a new one it's just like way too much.
there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, and sometimes it becomes restrictive, but knowledge is power, right?
Hmm.
The more you know about your barriers, the more you can do within that finite space, right? So, which is exactly what, if you oh gosh, I need to look this guy's name up, but like he was a big proponent of mathematically the universe being one solid thing, and that within that oneness you can have infinity, right? All things can exist in the body of one thing, so long as you're, not exceeding outside of that thing. And then you can have like multiverses, and that you are actually still within a finite thing. It's just like how are you subdividing it from there? Great mathematician, and yeah, just totally different tangent. But winding it back a little bit, so that director, he started doing all of those things,
All
and
the
then
things. Yeah.
like it's like I can't remember if it was seconds or minutes afterwards, after he'd done that, one of the lighting elements just fell out of the sky and nearly hit one of the actors that was on stage, just like
Yeah.
directly behind them. And so then my third example of what happens when you invoke the name of the Scottish play, I was
Well, real quick before you get there,
uh
so
huh,
did this director stop? Did
yeah,
they like that was
yeah, he was just
crazy?
like,
Okay,
yeah, and
okay,
then
I'm a
that
changed man.
mm-hmm.
Because one thing I was going to ask is like, so why do people keep doing Macbeth? Like it seems so crazy. Sorry, the Scottish play. Why do people keep doing it? Why do people keep doing it if it's so dangerous? But then I think it's just it's that it's like kind of one of those rituals or ceremonies where it's like you're trying to practice and discipline the good behavior of something that's very dangerous, very dark,
Mm-hmm.
very like don't be playing with fire kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then so you show that you respect it, and then things will go well.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which I
Right.
guess is maybe the Scottish play is a meditation on like pride, right? Because he thinks should be king, and
Mm-hmm.
he'll do whatever it takes to get there, and it all
Right.
falls flat in front of his face. Spoiler, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
I
those
mean,
of you.
and he evokes like some of the most primordial things, like magic, in order to accomplish that. Black magic in particular, and like you said, it all blows up in his face because he messed with the wrong guy. Like, it wasn't just let's take over the kingdom. He started systematically eliminating people, and the one righteous dude, the one dude who was there just trying to do his best in the name of God, was McDuff, and he was the one who ends up taking the life of McBee, at the end. So it's just like, you took my family, man. I'm taking you down.
Yeah.
And like, I got to play McDuff in that show, and I tell you what, man, like that energy just stayed with me. That just righteous indignation, stayed with me until I killed the king. Whoa. And it was at that point, just like all the pressure was gone, all the hate, all the anger, all of it was just gone and released, and it's like, boom, here's the guy's head. We're done. Let's get back to the way the things should be.
You do multiple shows though, right? So you have to get that.
Yeah. Every single night.
So every night you bring that back up, and then you.
Yeah, I have to lose my family every single night.
Yeah, right. Your method, so it's gotta, you feel it. Get to the third one.
The third example. I was working as a lighting guy over in Seattle, and for this little company, and there was only 2 companies working in that space. I'm not going to say who they are, just because I just don't want to invoke anything or bother anybody. But I know intimately the 2 companies. So one of the guys there was one of the carpenters. Like, he's just like, I don't believe any of that crap. Blah 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 blah. McBee, and he was just talking about it. It's like, I'm sitting there like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you clearly just don't have any respect for it. For one, just even if other people do have a problem with it, you're completely disrespecting their beliefs and practices for not doing
at the very least. At the very least, it's like, have some respect for other people. Like, and I think that's a symptomatic thing. Like, I will make the mistake, and I will repeatedly make the mistake, because sometimes I'm a slow learner. So like, and then I'll kind of take that on myself. Like, like if I say McBee again, like, I'll be like, oh, come on, man. Because I try to, or I feel like deep down, I don't want, if there is any truth to it, right? Like, I don't want to mess with that. Because I want to see what the other side is, as much of like, what happens when you do respect all the rules all the time, even if there are too many. You're doing the best you can, and you do the best you can for as many of the rules as you can for as long as you can, and you try and add more in, and just see if you can keep doing that, because you never know where that could end. But yeah, ultimately that there is a condition, a broad condition of most conscious being right now, human being. It's not human being, it's human doing. Most people probably they don't have the bandwidth. They don't feel like they have the bandwidth to accommodate everybody's little things. Oh, you don't want me doing this and that. I don't believe in it, so I'm not going to do it. It's too much for me to add that into my little list of rules. I feel like I can't care about all of you. So I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So anyway, how does this one play out? Is this a happy ending? Do they change their ways? What happens to our hero in this story?
So I'm not sure exactly what that person's doing now, but I do know that both of those companies no longer exist.
Oh, yeah, rough stuff.
One closed for good, like they just had to close close shop because they just couldn't keep the numbers up or whatever it was, and then the
Yeah.
other one because of the same reasons, but got absorbed into another company altogether, and
Whoa.
they don't exist technically anymore.
Mm. So I wonder if that has anything to do with the kind of people that they're putting in charge, having, like, I wonder what that is, like, is it a buildup of all kinds of, again, like, all kinds of different rule breaking that was happening, not just with that, but just a lack of respect or awareness of how, I mean, that's why businesses fail, right? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
why, like, thinking more broadly, not just in the context of the play that they were doing or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but like a series or a systematic disregard for X, Y, and Z well-being. That's what leads to degeneration and things not going well for whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that was just one emblematic feature. Is like, okay, another director or another, producer putting on and not having respect of for that is like symbolic of like, oh, that's where we're headed here. If
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't change, if we're not open to change, this is what's going to happen here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not to that person, or maybe not just to that person who's the offender in that case or whatever, but more broadly, like it can happen to the institution that's putting on and hiring or like allowing this kind of attitude to be pervasive. That's interesting
Mm-hmm.
because those are three unique stories, like from three different. Um, yeah, I'm a believer now. But those are three different. Because yeah, originally, like I think, oh, gosh, if I could rewind right instantly, I kind of want to go back to kind of like, because like I was gonna try and play like, yeah, I was gonna play the bad guy, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in that sense of going like, because I didn't want to, I guess I didn't want to own up to being at fault at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like oh, it's gonna be that bad, or like, oh, I'm not in the theater anymore. I am in a theater. Uh, but like we're not in a theater, and I think that's where I'm
Mm-hmm.
used to people generally having that like, oh, we respect this rule in a theater context with other actors, but like being
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, oh, okay, it's okay now, like I don't have to follow that rule. Like I think that's probably where my brain
Sure.
goes,
Yeah, yeah. And
and
like that's been a
yeah,
long-standing rule for a lot of things. I've just gotten to the point where it's just like, life's a stage, man. We're all just players
right,
coming in and out of each other's
totally,
experience. Everybody's got their
totally.
entrance, their exits, and their parts to play. So it's just like, just don't even mess with it because
Don't
it's
even mess
like,
with it. Yeah.
especially the more I learn about magic, like the more you realize, yes, there is a light and there is a dark side, and like you you you're either going with one or you're going with the other, and if you mess with one unintentionally, you can still come back from it, but if you dive headlong in, that those chances become that much smaller, and it becomes that much harder to get out of, you know,
Right.
because you're entrenched in
Yes.
it.
I
Which,
mean,
I mean, in the
oh, okay.
sense of like the Mayan calendar, just to bring it back full circle,
Let's
like
bring it back full circle because
it
yeah, I would like
there's
to. Yeah,
there's
yeah. Go ahead.
always light and dark sides to the energy, to each narwhal. Like there, it always gives you that understanding of energy. Like there's the understanding of taking and representing completion and opening up to another level of being. That dance of maturity and blue beauty, the ebb and flow of movement. That energy, being spiritual and powerful, but there's also a shadow because it can lead to distractions, resistances. When you hit that growing edge of your experience, it kind of reveals your true power. But you have to remember that time gave you these gifts, right? That the embarking on the new quest has given you these possibilities. So you have to pay respect to those things.
Hmm.
And sometimes it appears under unusual circumstances, and we have to be aware of those distractions, right? Those things that lead us away from the road, the path. We can't close ourselves off to other people's, and we've just basically been touching on these things this whole time.
Yeah,
You can't
that's
close
cool.
yourself off to other people's experiences just because it doesn't necessarily fall within what you have created in your own belief structure.
Right.
Because blah, 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 blah. Those tools are not the things that have the power, right? It's the person, that has
Person
the power.
using it, yeah. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. So it's kind of like your intention behind it. Like even if you're not aware, like if you're just going off and you're like, again, like I don't have the bandwidth to be this person that you guys are a bunch of whiny babies all, but that's it right there. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that attitude towards those people that believe differently than you that is going to cause the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Right.
and even that it's just a symptom of probably something deeper that's happening beyond that person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like in your last example of the theater, like it's putting on or it's hiring people who it can't see have this certain lack of respect or attitude towards other people's feelings, the way things are, the way things they should be, or just something like that. That
Mm-hmm.
um, that snowballs, right? So like if you're already kind of going down that path, it gets harder and harder and harder to start coming back the other way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Like that whole idea of hexing people, right? It's really the separation of oneness and thinking
yeah,
that you're superior to somebody else because they don't have your understanding or your knowledge or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Voodoo,
Right, yeah, so that
voodoo
you
is what I do to you, so that you can do what you do. I don't know. There's something. I was gonna have some fun there. If there's a way to bring that back around on
yeah,
me,
it's just
you
funny
do to
enough
me.
though, like voodoo does have a lot of rhyming in it and when
Ah,
you use it. The fact that you naturally went there.
I'm a rhymer. I want to be in my core. There's a big rhymer in me. Let's see if we can bring this back to says. I'm glad that we got back to the deer sign, and we're kind of. But yeah, I gotta pick up my son from daycare in a few minutes. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's see what if we can put some final capstones on that. Some themes of what we've been talking about today are definitely robust. Because as you were talking there too, I was thinking about words, and as it became about the Scottish play, it was like that's a fascination, right? It's like, and that's something that like I was like uh, trying not to be fascinated by, like in one direction or the other, right? That was where I was trying to play neutral. It's like let's just like not give it power, but it's like,
Right.
but like you were saying, it's a tool. A tool is only as powerful. Like that's me trying to say, that's not a gun, or like let's pretend the gun isn't there.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
which isn't helpful because it's like there is a gun there, and it's just it's a matter of using it appropriately. What is it a tool for? Like when is it appropriate to use that tool? Um, and only in the most rare of circumstances, maybe to stop a serial killer. Like who wants to be king, and so he's going
Mm-hmm.
on killing all the people and the kings of the good kings. It's
Right.
like okay, yeah, maybe it's time that somebody who's trained to use that thing can pick it up and fire it at Mr. McBee.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example too. So like if you just sit there and wantonly just wave a gun around and like fire a couple rounds off just
Yeah,
because you weren't pointing it at somebody doesn't mean you haven't done damage. Doesn't mean a bullet's not going to ricochet off of something and still hit somebody, right?
Oh
Doesn't
yeah,
mean you're not
right.
going to hit that rope, right? That's up in the sky, and then it hit it just right, and it takes a little bit of time, but it frays and it just unravels and unwinds, and all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, you got to be trained to you know what you're doing with it. And then I am talking about. There's a quote from. Do you recognize this movie?
Oh yeah, I love that movie, man. We talked about that
Oh, do we?
when I first came to your place, yeah. And then
Oh,
you were
okay,
just
you're
like,
right.
"Oh, dude, I got a poster of that on my wall."
So it's that thing where it's towards the beginning of the movie where they're like, it's more evil for good men to do nothing,
Right. Yeah. There's
something along those lines.
an evil that we should fear most is the um
Is that?
gosh. There's a
But
evil
it's
that we should
basically,
fear most, and that is the indifference of good men.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
right.
If
So
you
it's like,
know
if
better, don't
so,
do it.
and then just kind of like right back on like my impulse at the mention or the realization that, ooh, I might have misstepped there. The impulse to kind of go, ooh, let me just back away from this, not deal with this, be
Hmm.
neutral to it. Um, well, I'm also happy, hopefully not too prideful, that like I'm open to change, right? Like tell your stories, and then aha, yes, of course, like my higher value would tell me, um, you know, adopt this, respect this. There's good reason for it. It may not occur often in my life, but the next time it does, somewhere along the way, or in some other context, right? Not necessarily with the Scottish play, but like, when somebody else has a rule that they want to have followed and be respected, if
Hmm.
I have any kind of lens of like, ooh, well, that's not my rule, like
Hmm.
I wouldn't be, I have no real justification for that because in their experience they have great reason for it. So I need to kind of carry that respect for it regardless because
Yeah.
otherwise I am behaving like that pastor is pontificating on uh, is doing nothing. I just don't want to even if I'm not actively doing the offense. If I take a neutral stance, I am essentially um, not caring about
Hmm.
the impact that that particular thing has had on that
Hmm.
particular person or
Yeah.
those.
You're essentially facilitating it happening,
Yes, right. I'm
which is
just standing back, which
also
I
that
don't
root word, right?
facilitate. See,
Yeah, make it easy. Yeah.
facile, make it easy. And yeah, and I like that too. I think there's a reason why that came into my mind, and I've been meditating on it. Uh, and presumably this week of the deer will be about kind of getting a better hold on what I've been fascinated by. I'm thinking that that has a lot to do. So, because again, when I think of deer, and I think just literally about a deer, unless I mean the symbol, I have to think about that a little bit more of like the hold, and because one of the first things that made me think of is like, is it the grasping because that's like a hoof? That's also like a hoof.
Well, it's
Well, I guess a hoof
more
has
like
like two prongs, but like, because yeah, they're like, yeah, I don't know if those are
so
related at all. Like just
the
because.
image looks a bit more like horns, I think,
Mm,
in that sense, you know.
gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, it
But
probably has hoof representation as well.
so I was just thinking too that the deer, they're known for being, I don't know, delicate creatures, alert. Their ears can kind of do this thing, and they're looking around. and just trying to relate that to um, those elements that you were discussing of what it means to be, if you're born on a day of the deer, what the themes of this week will be because of those kinds of energies.
We got 10 seconds.
Yeah,
So,
just put a capstone on it, Chris.
I mean, just think about a deer, man. Anytime you see a deer in your backyard,
There it is.